Hey, everybody. Welcome to Trading the Close. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here at VerifiedInvesting.com. And we're about to dive into some incredible action in the metals today. Silver surging again, platinum and palladium, gold, new all-time highs. Markets overall continued to grind higher when we talk about equity markets. So let's start there. S&P 500, Nasdaq up slightly on the day, about 0.4%. We knew, and we've talked about this in the previous couple days, that when the institutional money goes on vacation, which they are doing for these final 2 weeks, then retail, which has a bullish bias, is always going to lead the market higher unless something surprises. Now, we did get the GDP number today, so 4.3% GDP growth. The markets initially didn't like that because better economic news means less chance of rate cuts down the line. But the markets again shrugged that off as retail just inched in and let the markets float up or drove the markets up slowly. So that's where we are today. Let's take a look at this S&P 500. This is your intraday chart, 10-minute chart. So each candle is 10 minutes long. We started slightly negative. We went up, we chopped around a little bit, and then we went into float mode. Float mode, look at all these little candles just slowly grinding up as the market does what it does best on holiday weeks. And again, volume will continue to get lighter and lighter in the coming days. Now, daily chart, we have this parallel channel. And again, the parallel channel is something that I've been monitoring quite closely. We've talked about how we could be slated to rally up into this parallel here going into the end of the year. And then that is expected to be major resistance for a potential sell-off in January. So watch that closely. And again, remember that if you scroll back to 2021, if we go back here, the same thing happened in the bull market high of 2021. We rallied up into this level, pulled back, and then we made another push up, tagging it again before the big sell-off. It almost looks like a perfect replica of what again happened in the bull market highs of 2021. So just a little bit to keep in mind, right? Everyone out there, we see the fear and greed index turning back towards greed. Retail, again, is buying in hook, line, and sinker. But the charts, again, are saying there's limited upside and people should be a little bit more cautious. When I say limited upside, we look at this and we say, okay, here's your weekly S&P chart. We talked about this even last week when there was more upside to the market. Now we're down to about 1.2% upside in the remainder of the year. Now we could pierce that level, but overall, I would generally expect us not to really break through that level significantly and confirm above it into year end. Flipping over to the Nasdaq today, good little bounce here again today. Same thing, up about just shy of 0.5%. We could still float up on this, maybe reaching this trend line, which has worked as major support over here, but now is resistance. If we do a measurement of this, it gives us still another about 2.75, 2.85% upside on the Nasdaq, potentially into year end. Now, I'm sure if you're like me, you say, okay, the S&P, the Nasdaq, they're floating up. Nvidia had a nice day today, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the metals were off the charts today. Again, literally surging even higher. We've got to look at some of these. So let's flip over and go to silver. Now, silver, I had this parallel that I was watching very closely. We talked about it in the game plan this morning. I said, if we close above 70 today, then that's off the table, that it's broken through that. And we just blew right through it. Now, there's some really interesting stuff going on here. So number one, I'm going to flip over to our weekly chart. Now, if we take the weekly chart, right, and we zoom out and we say, in fact, let's go to the monthly. Let's get an even bigger view. And we see that, again, in 2020 was the low. And where are we now? Let's do a measurement percentage-wise, because this is very fascinating. We have rallied about 520% from that low of March 2020. Right now, what's interesting is if we go back to the beginning of the bull run in 2008 at the lows to 2011, how much upside? 500% as well. So interesting just to note that we had the 500% rally in silver from 08 to 2011. And then if we take that COVID low, we've now done 500%, actually eclipsing it by just a little bit. The last thing I'll point out here is just something I've kind of came across. If we take a look at this chart here and we see the big pop going back to 1979 to 1980 on silver, and we do a trend line here, take a look at this. This is just something of interest. We connect that low of the pullback, so the bear market low after the 79 high, to this high in 2011, and we stretch it out. We are almost there. We're not there yet, but we're almost into that level. Now, listen, this is just a level. It doesn't mean it's going to stop on a dime here. It doesn't even have to blink here. But again, my job as a technician is to say, okay, what is the next potential level? And this would be one that I would watch. It's around 72.50 or so on the silver price. And listen, silver could go a lot higher. This is a momentum-driven play right now. You have, in my opinion, this is the hot trade. This is the meme stock right now. All right. Retail investors are loving silver. It's a commodity that is priced pretty cheap compared to oil. Well, it was cheaper than oil at one point, not anymore. But compare it to gold, silver, or gold, platinum, and palladium, and it is the cheapest of the precious metals out there. And so you have this big frenzy right now, shorts getting squeezed, all of the above, and it is driving it into the end of the year. One of the things I was thinking about is this, folks. So we know that the end of year ends the tax harvesting, right? And so if you're someone, and I'm just playing devil's advocate to look at the other side here, if you've been in silver all year long, are you really going to sell it into year end and pay taxes on that? Now, again, if you're in the metal, that's a different story. But let's say you bought the SLV, an ETF that tracks silver. No, you're not going to sell it into year end because then you'd have to pay taxes on those gains. More than likely, we'll see the selling pressure come in early in January, if there is some, because that's when that harvesting of gains will take place. Then those gains don't have to be paid taxes on until a year later, essentially. So just a couple of things like that. In addition, one more point here that I want to make is I'm in the belief here that money has rotated out of Bitcoin and gone into silver. And I do think if silver corrects, there's an opportunity in Bitcoin for a significant bounce, potentially back to 100,000, as money could rotate back. Keep that in the back of your mind, folks. That is something to monitor. We'll talk about Bitcoin in a second, but looking at gold having a good update, really only up 1%, pales in comparison to silver, platinum, and palladium. But again, nonetheless, one thing it does do is it confirms the breakout above the prior high. All right, so again, confirms the breakout here. Where would be our next potential level? Well, the only thing we can do now is start looking at pivot high to pivot high, and that would give us another point here of interest that would take us to about that 47 to 4,800 level on gold. That could be your next upside target. At this point, it's only about $300 away per ounce, not that far. Now, normally I don't go through platinum and palladium, but we've got to take a look. Look at the surge on the weekly chart of platinum. The biggest factor here, this is what we call a double top. So platinum has now achieved a double top. Now, listen, it doesn't mean it has to stop here, but in technical analysis, double tops usually see price rejected off of that level. Incredible rally. Look at this move up in platinum just going back to April of this year when it was trading at $890. It is now at $2,300 per ounce. But the big deal today is a technical double top. Look at palladium. Palladium is not at all-time highs, but it did enter this major resistance zone up here. So again, be interesting to see. Look at all of these levels here, how price broke above, support, 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 then went up, then support, support, again, a big move up, support, right? And then we broke down, and now we've come into that level. So this is a really interesting point to keep an eye on the palladium chart. All right. Now, listen, I'm not going to go into copper, but copper's actually, it inched up as well today, had a little bit of a move, but it's still actually, believe it or not, stuck in what I would consider a bear flag, which is a warning sign about the economy in 2026. Now, we're going to continue on to the commodities because that's where the action is, right? As a trader, as a short-term investor, I'm always focused on what is moving in the markets, commodities, crypto, or stocks. And right now it's commodities. Now, you guys know we filled a major gap yesterday on natural gas. Did you guys see the move today in nat gas? Holy cow, what a move up. 11.5% rally just today. That's even after the bounce. This is the power of gap fills. Look at that right there. Fills the gap, rips up. Again, I told you guys I was accumulating. Actually, from over here, I was dollar cost averaging, got my average down right in here. Boom, right there. A beautiful move up into the money on the plays here. All right. So again, we'll keep an eye on that and see how it all behaves, but beautiful move. Now, the next play that I've been hyping up, right, based on technical analysis is crude oil. Crude oil has not made a big run. Everything else made a big run. Even natural gas had a big run until this latest correction. But oil to me is the hidden gem into 2026. Let's check on how it did today. If we go to crude oil, it was up again today. So again, it continues to move up here beautifully. And again, pushing up. Now it is getting close to a major technical level around $59 a barrel. If it can bust through there, you get a big breakout on this chart. I continue to like this chart, folks. Overall, the bottom is holding. As long as this low around $55 does not break and confirm below, I remain bullish on crude oil as a catch-up trade. You might even see some money rotating out of the metals into things that have not run yet. That's classic money rotation that institutional money does. Granted, they're mostly on vacation, but still could even be starting here a little bit. So again, pretty cool stuff, guys. Again, the commodities, not very often you see this much action in the commodities, but again, you're witnessing periods that we haven't seen since 2011 in silver and the metals, and then prior to that, 1979. So it's basically generational here, price action, about every 10 to 30 years, frankly, that we're seeing this type of movement. All right, let's go back and take a look here. I want to go into Bitcoin real quick. Bitcoin, again, down slightly today. Notice the Bitcoin chart has fallen significantly. It is in a bearish pattern. But remember, as long as we hold this bottom trend line, then a bearish pattern, you can still make money going long in a bearish pattern, right? I mean, it can all go all the way up here towards 100,000. And the more I see the move in oil, in silver and the metals, the more I think Bitcoin may need to play catch up here. So keep this on your radar. Until I really thought about that today, I was kind of lukewarm. I am long with my service, Smart Money Crypto, in Bitcoin. And by the way, I did pick up 2 new crypto positions in there because I actually like the bull flags that a few of these altcoins are making. But the point is here is that the runs in silver specifically, somewhat platinum and palladium, at some point that probably spills over into oil and also into Bitcoin. And you see a money rotation. So I think, again, watch for that shift to start to see a pullback in silver and then potentially a rally in Bitcoin and oil continuing. Overall, amazing markets, guys. And just to go back to some stock action here, I mentioned Nvidia prior. Nvidia is doing exactly what the chart would dictate. So you broke down below this trend line here. We came down, we retraced, rejected, and now we're retracing. Look for this in the next couple trading days to hit the 192 area. And then that's going to be the big test for Nvidia. That will be technically, you should see a rejection in price off of that level. All right. So listen, as we come into tomorrow is a pseudo holiday. The markets will be open. Friday, the markets are open as well. Thursday, they're closed for Christmas. Friday's a half day for the markets. So again, just be aware the volume will remain light. That gives a neutral to bullish bias on the market. All right, on the stock market, we'll see if silver can continue its epic run like it is. Just be careful. At some point, that rug will get pulled from silver, and you could see as much as a 5 to 10% drawdown very quickly in that metal. I still love the metals long term, but again, they're just getting a little too long in the tooth in the near term. Likely a correction is very, very close. Remember that level on silver, which was right around, 72.50, 73, somewhere in that vicinity. Let's watch that closely. All right, guys. I will be done here. Drew should be back tomorrow for trading the close. He's back and rocking it. And as always, folks, you guys are amazing for sticking with us, for watching, for commenting, and all your positive vibes out there. I hope we're helping you guys a little bit dissect this wild market action. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and take care. Bye-bye.